Talking with the experts.
In episode 380, my guest, Mellissa Tong, discusses how to build and elevate your brand.
Yeah, so what my focus is really on crafting stories for brands so that they can utilize the story to get more sales and grow their company. I'll give you another example. So I just spoke at a national conference in Kentucky, and in the conference during my talk, again, I was talking about storytelling, and my topic was how to stand out from your competitors by crafting a buzzworthy brand story. So this woman raised her hand. She said, "Well, I don't have a story." And I don't know I don't know what came over me, but in that moment, I was determined. I told everyone in the room, I said, you know what? I'm not going to allow anyone walk out of this room thinking you don't have a story, because that is so not true. I've worked with enough people now, knowing that regardless, I can help you craft a story, whether you're solo, doesn't matter how big your company is. There are tons of stories we can use.
Talking with the experts.
Talking with the Experts would love to acknowledge Global Glamping Charities Incorporated for generously supporting this podcast. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all of its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from talkingwiththeexperts.com. Talking with the Experts is about all things business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcasting streaming platforms and on YouTube. Today, my guest is Mellissa Tong, and we're going to be discussing how to build and elevate your brand and, how to build and elevate your brand by way of storytelling. So Melissa's going to discuss how we can apply just a few simple storytelling tricks that can help us all to connect with our ideal customers and get them to buy from us. And Mellissa is a newscaster turned award-winning storyteller. She is a #1 best-selling author on Amazon. She's the founder and chief creative officer of a creative marketing and content production company named Duck Punk Productions Incorporated. Well, that's a lovely, I like that, Duck Punk. At Duck Punk, Mellissa works with small to medium businesses and large corporations on building their brands, drive sales, win customers, and through her work, which includes TV commercials, branded content, sales training, marketing, and branding. Some of her previous clients are McDonald's, Old Navy, Nissan, Verizon, Wells Fargo, just to name a few. Her campaigns have raised sales and engagements for her clients from between 30 and 400%, which is a great figure. Awards that she's won are Clio, Addy, Telly, and the Best of Business in Video Production for 9 consecutive years since 2012. Wow, that's amazing, Mellissa. Thank you so much for being here today, and I'm looking forward to having a chat about how we can elevate our brand through storytelling.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's so funny because when I was working as a newscaster, I didn't know at the time, but they gave me a 5-minute human interest segment every day. So they said, we don't care what you cover, just don't do any hot news. So I say, great. So I was on the job for 4 years, and then I covered everything from health, beauty, technology, science, red carpet events, movie premieres, covered Star Trek convention twice, sat on the captain's chair, did my intro and outro. It was just so much fun because I was in my early 20s. And in those 4 years, I interviewed thousands of people from all walks of life and ended up crafting over 1,200 stories. Now, at the time, I didn't know it, but looking back, those 4 years, it really gave me a very intense training, as a storyteller. So fast forward, after selling my company, after working with, major Fortune 100 companies, I realized that, wow, the big companies, they have a whole, army of agencies, advertising agencies working for them. So obviously they know what they're doing. But when I look at, the smaller size and medium-sized businesses, they don't have a whole army of agency. And sometimes they may or may not even have an in-house, branding and marketing department. And I look at them and I realize that, wow, to them, it's very challenging. They don't even know, sometimes they don't even understand what branding is. So I'll give you an example. I worked with a 75-year-old heating and air conditioning company, and they were doing very well. I mean, they were winning awards left and right, and they were one of the two, national companies that have been winning the awards consecutively, and they're doing well. I mean, they're not suffering anything like that. But they hired me. They said, okay, we want to do a video because we want to show our customers that we are bigger and better than our competitors. And I said, okay, great, but I don't think that's the angle you want to go after. And they go, well, why not? Bigger and better is always better. I said, well, not necessarily, because I don't think there's any emotional connection. When you're just talking about bigger and better. They said, well, then what do you think we should focus on? I say, okay, well, first of all, I would like you guys to really think about what your brand is about. They say, well, don't you know what we sell? They say, yeah, I know what you sell, but I don't think you sell, heating and conditioning. I don't think you just sell heating and conditioning units. They looked at me like I'm an alien from another planet, thinking, well, haven't you done your homework? You don't know what we sell, then why are you even here? Right? I said, well, I know what you sell, but I think there's another level deeper than what you think. So we got together, I showed them, a lot of different examples. And then in the end, I made them realize the heating and conditioning units are the tools they used to sell. But what they truly sell is comfort. So imagine this, a company who's been around for 75 years, very successful, right? They never really built a brand because they were focusing on pushing and selling the units. But now that they realize, oh, wow, yes, she's right. The units are just the tools. We really sell comfort. So now they're starting to really pay attention to building a brand. And then from that realization, we built a tagline for the company. And the tagline is, no matter the weather, we make it better.
I like that. That's nice.
Right? If you're too hot, hey, we have the AC. If you're too cold, we have the heater, right? So you see, so now it works. So the reason why I bring up that example, it sometimes it just really doesn't matter how big you are or how long you've been in business. Sometimes when you don't really understand the concept behind how to build a brand, then you don't really have a brand, because a brand is what your customers, gut feeling about your company. A brand is not about what you think it is, right? And if you keep pushing, heating and air conditioning units, then obviously you don't have a brand because people think, oh, okay, well, you sell the, heating and conditioning units, right? But when you take a step back and really focus on, okay, what are we really selling? So when they realize, oh, wow, we sell comfort, then it's a whole new way of talking to their customers. So now they don't focus on selling the units anymore. So now they say, okay, well, hi, we are blah blah blah, right? And we want to find out how much comfort we can bring to your home. See, there's a whole new different conversation now.
Absolutely. That's very clever, and I don't think 99% of businesses realize that we're not, what we do is our tool, and what we offer is our brand.
Exactly. Yep.
Oh, that's clever. I might have to rethink my tagline now. It's interesting. So how did you, I mean, you've sort of alluded to how you got into doing this, from your newscasting days, but what prompted you to, build your brand around marketing and, building stories around a brand?
Well, like I said, I wasn't really aware that I was telling stories, although I was, right? And then I fell in love with producing at the news, at the news job. And I thought, well, I knew I didn't want to be in news forever. So I thought, okay, let's just try to make a career out of producing. So I jumped over to the fiction side, worked on a CBS scripted show, primetime scripted show, before I started my company in 2000. So at the beginning, I was making independent movies, documentaries, and TV commercials and branded content. But after working with these big corporations for like 10, 15 years, I realized, wow, the campaigns that do well and sell well is are the ones that have a solid story. The ones that just focusing on, hey, this is a new service, this is a new product that doesn't really have a story, they don't do as well. So I learned a lot of, I just learned a lot from working with these big corporations. And then I started looking at, the small and medium-sized businesses, and I realized that, that's what they're really lacking. But I still didn't really, I wasn't really connecting the dots quite yet. So a few years ago, I went through some personal changes, and I looked at everything that I've done, and at the same time, I noticed a lot of the younger millennials, they started branding themselves and calling themselves storytellers. But when I looked at them, I was very puzzled, because some of them, they build websites, and some are portrait photographers. And I kept thinking, wow, how are they calling themselves storytellers? Website is building a website. It's not really crafting a story. Portrait photographer, it's just shooting a still picture of you. That's not really crafting a story. So why are these people calling themselves a storyteller? Where I have 4 years of solid experience, worked on over 1,200 stories. Why am I calling myself a storyteller? So I started rebranding myself, and then I started speaking everywhere. I started, speaking first. I started educating people, what storytelling is, how to apply it in the business, and the more I do, the more I realize, wow, I really need to carve out some time to work with small and mid-sized businesses to help them really understand what branding is all about and grow and scale their company. So, and then I started, working more and more with smaller and medium-sized businesses. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a quite a journey, really, and photography can tell stories, but you need to be careful, and you need to make the photograph fit what you're trying to say. It can't just be a still photo with no context behind it.
Yeah, but that's just like a visual. That's sort of like, to me, storytelling is really about crafting a story and using the story to connect with your customers on an emotional level, right? So yeah, a photograph can tell a story, but it's telling a story in the visual sense. It's not telling story in the storytelling sense. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, yeah, I understand
So,
now. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So what my focus is really on crafting stories for brands, so that they can utilize the story to get more sales and grow their company. I'll give you another example. So I just spoke at a national conference in Kentucky, and in the conference, during my talk, again, I was talking about storytelling, and my topic was how to stand out from your competitors by crafting a buzzworthy brand story. So this woman raised her hand. She said, well, I don't have a story. And I don't know I don't know what came over me, but in that moment, I was determined. I told everyone in the room, I said, you know what? I'm not going to allow anyone walk out of this room thinking you don't have a story, because that is so not true. I've worked with enough people now, knowing that regardless, I can help you craft a story, whether you're solo, doesn't matter how big your company is, there are tons of stories we can use. So I said, I'm not going to let anyone think that. And if you're thinking that, you need to change your thinking, and I'm just not going to allow that. And then the woman said, well, but I don't think I have one. I don't think I have anything. I said, okay, come on up. Why don't you just come on up? So I invited her to come on stage. And I started, I put on my reporter's hat, and I started asking all these questions. I asked her how did she got into it, and all of that. And she said she was born and raised in Brazil. And in Brazil, growing up, when she was young, there was no concept of insurance. And even their parents, moved the family over moved them to the US. There was still no insurance, So the parents never got insurance. And she was working a full-time job. And then one day a woman asked her if she wanted to sell insurance. So it just kind of fell in her lap, and she just said yes. So she just started selling, and she was selling and selling. She said she kind of knew she was doing something right, but it didn't really hit her until this happened. So one day she sold a plan to a very young and healthy 30, a woman in her early 30s. And 6 months later, this woman passed away. And she said she remembers showing up at the funeral with the check. And the mother, she has, the client had a aging mother, had an aging mother. So the mother had no idea that the daughter has bought a, health plan. So she showed up with the check, and the mother was like so relieved, right? Because now she had, although she lost her daughter, of course, it's very unfortunate, but she had something to rely on. So that's her story. And she said she had no story.
Yeah, everyone has a story.
Everyone has a story, right?
Absolutely.
So the key is, how do you really make your story connect? And here's the trick. So for her, she could just tell her story just like what I told you, right? I was born and raised in Brazil, and I had no concept of what insurance was all about. And even after my parents moved us to the States, they didn't have insurance either. So I had no clue what that really, what insurance really meant. And then somehow I fell into, this job selling insurance, and I was selling and selling, and I knew I was doing something right, but it didn't really hit me until, this day, right? So she could tell the story like that. And it was good, right? But the thing to make it pop is, emphasize the look on the mom's face, because she didn't add this part. I added this part on, because I assumed that the mother, without knowing that the daughter had a plan, right? Somehow she got this check. I have no idea how much it was, but still, I'm sure it was, a good amount, right? So I'm sure she has some sort of look on her face. So that's why, when she tells a story, if she focus on, I will never forget the look on the mom's face, the look of relief on her face when she received my check. That, at that moment, I realized, yes, I was selling insurance, but I was making a difference in people's lives by selling insurance. Kind of close the story like that, making a statement like that. That, to me, is the piece that will make people connect. And then once people realize, wow, yes, she's right. I never really pay attention to insurance because it's not something we normally think about. But hey, maybe this is something I should look into, right? Especially if I have aging parents, anything can happen. It would definitely make people think twice.
Yeah, I would think about it, if with that extra bit added on.
Exactly.
Because it would pull at my heartstrings. So, my parents are now looked after because I can't be there for them. So
exactly.
it does make a heap of sense.
Yeah. So it's all about pulling the heartstring.
Absolutely. Yes. Good tip and good feedback. I like that. That's wonderful. Mellissa, tell us about your book.
Oh, okay. So I actually I have 3 books. So I had a chapter in all 3 books. So let's see, 2 of them were about storytelling and video, and how to apply video in your business to help you grow your business. And one book is not about that. One book is about my journey to becoming a public speaker. So I was not, the first time I was on stage, I was 4 years old. And I wasn't scared at all. I did a marvelous job because I was in kindergarten, and then the teacher wanted to find somebody to deliver a congratulations speech to the graduating class in kindergarten, and I was handpicked. So fast forward, a lot of learned behavior, right? I somehow became very fearful of speaking in public.
Yeah, same. I was great as a child. Wasn't afraid at all. But as I got older, became terrified.
Right? Exactly. So that's what happened to me. And what made it worse was I was also married to a wordsmith. So, and I gave him the power. I told him, because, I was born and raised in Hong Kong. So English is my second language. So I gave him the power. I told him, okay, if you hear any mistakes that I made, please correct me. So he did. But I didn't realize that after years and years and years and years of that, it completely took away my self-confidence. And then it made me completely self-conscious about every single word that came off my mouth. And because of that, I became terrified. And I couldn't even speak in front of more than 3 or 4 people without having to memorize what I have to say the next day. It was horrible. And it was so paralyzing. And I remember during that time, I looked at all these speakers, right? And then they were like speaking without even a script or anything. I was like, wow, I wish I could do that. I couldn't even speak in front of 3 people without even memorizing. Wow, so deep down secretly, I was hoping, wow, I so wish I could get there. And so finally, after a very long time, I realized that, wow, this is really crippling for me. And I don't know what happened, but I told myself I need to get back to where I was when I was 4 years old. And once I did that, once I made that choice, and I was also doing a lot of personal development work at the same time. So coupled with all the personal development work I was doing, I was able to get back there within months. And I remember a few months later, I tested it in front of a very small crowd, and I was okay. And then from then on, I never looked back. So that's why I really think, the fear of public speaking is a learned behavior.
Yeah,
So yeah, so my chapter was
from.
about that.
Yeah, I don't know where mine came from. I think it came about in teenage years, because up until then I wasn't afraid at all. But yeah.
See, that's what I said is learned. It's learned. Somehow we picked it up.
Yeah, it's a shame. I mean, I
Yeah,
can do
shame,
the podcast
exactly.
interviews and everything, but get me on my own in front of a camera.
Yeah,
Terrible.
a lot of people have that problem. You're not the only one.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really uncomfortable because I know that I'm good in the camera to camera, but yeah, just do it on my own, and I've tried putting pictures up on the camera and it just still doesn't work.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I've done a class called how to be a rock star on camera for your business. So maybe I should do that class again, just to teach people some basic survival skills for on camera.
Yeah, that could be an add-on to your services.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So where can people find you if they'd like to work with you or find out a bit more about you?
Well, very easy. I'm very easy to find. My name is spelled with 2 L's, 2 S's. Mellissa Tong, and my company is called Duckpunk, DUCKPUNK.net.
Oh, I love that name. It's really great. How did you come up with it?
There's a story behind it.
Please do.
There's a story behind everything, right? So this was back in 2000. I was trying to find a name for my company. I was at this lake and I was feeding the ducks with breadcrumbs. There come this duck who had a mohawk, just like my logo. And after 40 minutes, all the other ducks were like, okay, I'm done. I'm full. I'm just hanging out. Cannot be bothered. This Mohawk dog, he would charge over to get to the food. So I kept looking at him thinking, wow, you just one tiny duck. You've been eating this whole time. How much more can you eat? So so eventually I left. And then that night I went home. I couldn't shake that image off my head. So I started playing with the word punk dog, Mohawk, and punk rock. And 6 weeks later, I decided to name my company Duck Punk, but that's half of the story. So at the time, this was my justification because my last name is Tong. So I'm always on the last or second last page. So I thought, okay, if I have a name of my company, I want my company to have a name that doesn't end up on the very last page. So instead of Punk Duck, I flipped it and call it Duck Punk. So for D, I know I'm not on the front page, but at least I'm not on the very last page. So at the time, that was my justification. But years later, he became my inspiration because as a minority woman working in advertising and entertainment, he became my inspiration. I mean, every time I jump through a hurdle, I have to remind myself to be like him, to never give up and go after what I want. So that's my Duck Punk story.
And it's an inspiration just in itself. I like that. Yeah. I might have to get myself a duck too. I don't know.
whatever animals work, right? What animals that work for you? Yep.
Absolutely. Mellissa, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me. Would you like to share some words of wisdom with our audience today?
Yeah, the wisdom I want to share is don't ever underestimate your own experiences, because in all of those experiences, there comes many impactful stories. You may not know it yet, but if you start working with somebody, they will help you, they will get it out of you. And then when they get it out of you, they can start helping you craft it. And then once you craft it, you have many amazing, compelling, impactful stories to share. And once you share that, you will be able to connect with the audience on an emotional level, and you don't have to sell anymore. I don't believe in selling at all. So it's about sharing your genius. It's about helping. It's about using your what you're best at and helping people with just that. And all of us, are here on earth with our special gift. So don't underestimate your story. Just keep at it. If you don't know how to do it, hire somebody to do it with you, and you will get there.
Absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. Great words. Mellissa, thank you so much. And I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.